Hey folks, today I'm going to walk through the OSD Audio Nero HTA5200, the 5-channel, 210 watts per channel amp that's been popping up in a lot of home theater threads lately. I've been watching a bunch of forum discussions, reading a handful of reviews, and even looking at a few build logs from people who have already wired this into their setups. My goal is to help you decide if this little beast fits your room, your budget, and your expectations before you click Add to Cart. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, why does a lot of us hesitate when we talk about amplifiers in a home theater context? The big question is usually, will this actually move my speakers enough without blowing a fuse, and will it play nicely with my existing source gear? The Nero is marketed as a budget-friendly 5-channel solution, which sounds great until you realize that the term budget can mean anything from a decent entry-level model to a compromise that hurts sound quality. So let's break down what you get, where the value really lies, and who should press the purchase button. The Nero is a Class AB amp, which tells you it's aiming for a balance between the silky smoothness of Class A and the efficiency of Class B. In practice, that means you'll hear a clean, uncolored signal at moderate listening levels, but you'll also have headroom for those big movie explosions. The amp puts out 210 watts per channel into an 8-ohm load, which is more than enough for most bookshelf and even many small floor standing speakers. If your speakers are rated for 100 watts RMS, you're well within safe territory. If you're running high-efficiency horn loads that only need 30 watts, you'll probably never need to push the amp past a fraction of its capability. One of the first things I noticed while watching a couple of user setups is the simplicity of the input options. The Nero gives you balanced XLR and unbalanced RCA inputs on each channel, plus a 12-volt trigger output for turning your other components on and off. That's a big win if you want a clean, single-cable connection from a preamp or a dedicated source, and it also means you won't have to fight with ground loops on the XLRs. The 12V trigger is especially handy for those who have a power strip synced to their AVR. You can route the trigger to power the rest of the chain on the exact moment the amp turns on, which eliminates that awkward click-click-click before the movie actually starts. Now, a lot of people wonder about signal-to-noise ratio, SNR, because a higher number translates to cleaner audio when the volume is low. The Nero's 110 dB SNR is respectable for a Class AB design in this price range. In real-world listening, you won't hear hiss or buzzing even at nightstand levels, which is a common complaint with cheaper amplifiers that claim high power but deliver noisy output. That figure holds up when you compare it with other entry-level amps that often sit closer to the 100 dB mark. Let's talk about the practical side of wiring a 5-channel amp. The Nero's rear panel is fairly straightforward. Each channel has a status LED that glows amber when the channel is active, turning green if the signal exceeds a certain level. This isn't a fancy VU meter, but it does give you a quick visual cue during setup. No one wants to be in a dark room, plugging in speaker wires, and then wondering if they made a mistake. Those LEDs can help you verify that each speaker is actually receiving a signal before you fire up a test tone. One area where the Nero shows a hidden trade-off is its heat management. Because it's a solid-state Class AB design, it runs warm under sustained high-power loads. The chassis is sturdy aluminum, but it doesn't have a massive heatsink array like some higher-priced models. In a cramped cabinet, you might notice the surface temperature rising noticeably after a 2-hour marathon of an action movie. That's not a deal-breaker for most home theater rooms, but if you're planning to mount the amp in a closed enclosure or keep it tucked behind a wall, you'll want to ensure there's at least a couple of inches of clearance for airflow. Another nuance that shows up in user reports is the gain structure. The Nero's internal gain is set fairly high, which can be a boon if you have a low-output preamp, but it can also mean you need to dial down the source volume to avoid clipping when you're playing a dynamic soundtrack. The solution is simply use a small gain knob or a volume attenuation module if your preamp pushes out very strong signals. Most people will just set their source volume a little lower than they normally would with an AVR, and the result is clean, distortion-free sound. Who should consider buying the Nero? If you're building a dedicated home theater system with a separate preamp, Or if you already own a high-quality AV receiver and just need extra power for your front or surround speakers, the Nero slots in nicely. It's also a good match for people who have